America, which are things like infrastructure, prescription drugs, and addressing the threat of climate change.
Okay, the first two could be bipartisan in that list. Justin, do you think that Democrats and Republicans can agree to get something done?
I would hope so, and I think prescription drugs, infrastructure, those are two important things. But something nobody's really talking about here that should be a bipartisan issue is the national debt. Every American right now owes almost $70,000, or that's their share of the national debt. It's going to go up about another $30,000 over the next 10 years. So we really need to get together, find ways to work on this before the problem becomes even worse. And, you know, Congress is really left with no option but to really raise taxes or drastically cut services. So I hope we can turn the focus towards that.
Yeah, the $22 trillion debt, we were just watching the clock. It's $3 billion a day, and it just keeps growing. And it speaks to the fact that the budget system is flawed, Andy. You know, that spending bill was 1,200 pages. How do we make sure that we can always keep the government open, we don't have a future shutdown, and maybe we could avoid these continuing resolutions which just kick the can down the road?
Well, look, it was amazing that during the transition to the Trump administration, the debt clock that was in the House of Representatives magically broke down. And then what we saw just months later was a rushed through tax cut for the wealthiest people and the largest companies that ignored the CBO estimates, that ignored the usual process, and left $2 trillion of debt on the hands of the American people, and actually ended up raising taxes over the long run for working and middle-class families. So, you know, if you add on to that, plus two unpaid wars, plus the Bush tax cuts of 2001 and 2003, there you have, you know, the huge chunk of the deficit. Meanwhile, you add on the financial crisis of 2008, which put millions of Americans out of work and blew a hole through the deficit. And what is Trump doing? He passes another financial deregulatory bill. So I think we need to start looking at who's fighting for the American people and who's playing games.
Yeah, and speaking of fighting, if screen left, we were just showing live protests going on this President's Day across the nation. Justin, at least 8 states planning to sue the administration over the national emergency declaration at the border. How long do you expect that to get held up in the courts?
You know, I think this could go on for several months. But really, I'd like to push back on what Andy said just a little bit. I don't think this is a problem of not enough revenue. Revenues are basically at the historical average over the next 10 years. This is a spending problem, and until we get that under control, start talking about how we can fix Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and make those programs more sustainable, then we're never going to get the debt under control.
Yeah, and the debt has grown under the Trump administration, $2 billion, under the Obama administration, $8.5 trillion, and the numbers are just getting bigger and bigger. Justin, we have to end it there, unfortunately, guys. I know we can talk about this for a while. Justin, Andy, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.